This is Personal Financial Intelligence with me, Ben Roble. I spent the last week or so thinking a lot about subscriptions. I spent 25 years in financial services, and if you step back for a second, you realize that a lot of financial products are actually just subscriptions themselves. Mortgages, insurance policies, ETFs, these are things you own until you choose not to, and every day while you own them, you pay a fee. An interest rate, a premium, or an outright fee. Now, some of this makes sense. How else are you supposed to get these products to work? But fundamentally, what's important to recognize here is that subscriptions are really most attractive to businesses. They are predictable. They're predictable for company leadership, and they're predictable for the investors in the company. Something that's predictable is generally worth more than something that's not. But the problem is that the data says people are getting overwhelmed with the number of subscriptions that they have. Harvard released a study that says that people average nearly $300 a month in subscription payments. And what that has led to, as many of you may have seen, is an effort from people to reduce the number of subscriptions. And we've seen companies specifically build tools that help you identify subscriptions that you don't use anymore. The other problem with this subscription is that in between the moments when it's valuable, there's a lot of doubt as to what exactly it's doing. I mean, if you think about this from the perspective of Netflix, you want to have access to movies on demand, so you have to pay for something to be on demand. A subscription model makes a lot of sense. I think it's time for the financial services industry to reconsider its commitment to the subscription world. So let's talk about a couple concepts that really drive this perspective. The first thing is that there are effectively two levers when it comes to your finances. There's a cost lever and there's a growth lever. Now, the cost lever essentially says you're not going to focus on growing your income, growing your assets. You're going to just focus on keeping more of what you have. So this is a budgeting app that focuses on your spending, or an index fund that charges you a small fee to match the market. You won't grow any quicker than you were before, but you'll keep more of what you have, and so you will grow. More money will accrue to you over time. The problem with a cost lever is that it takes a long time to work. You can't save your way into wealth except for over a longer period of time. A growth lever focuses on growing the value of your assets or growing your income. So you think about this as like a job change where you go somewhere else for a raise, or a private equity investment where you accept that you pay a higher fee, but you have a higher expectation for returns. When it comes to personal finance, you should be pulling on both of these levers. And the ones that you pull on and when you pull on them have a lot to do with your unique circumstances. This is one of the reasons why generic financial advice that you find in books and podcasts and on the radio and on the internet is actually sort of difficult to implement. And it tends to skew towards the cost argument. Anybody can implement a cost solution. Almost everybody in the world should spend less than they do. But it's much harder to implement a growth strategy unless you really understand what somebody's financial structure looks like and what their circumstances are. The second thing we need to consider is that there are essentially three kinds of events when it comes to life in general, but your finances specifically. There are recurring events, episodic events, and infrequent events. So recurring events happen regularly, all the time, day to day, week to week, month to month. Subscriptions tend to focus on recurring events, and they're pretty good at it. These tend to be cost-oriented. Think again about a budgeting app. How much are you spending day to day? Are you going to get yourself in trouble because you buy too many lattes at Starbucks? But the fact of the matter is you can spend your way out of wealth, and you need to control for that. But this is really about developing a habit. This is about changing your behavior. For many people, this is a behavior that they already had, and a tool just makes it easier for them to do it. For other people who learn this behavior, once you've got it, the app really doesn't do as much for you as it used to. but it doesn't reduce its fee just because you've gotten better at it. Episodic events are things that happen infrequently, but often enough that you've got to keep an eye on them. So this is checking on your investment portfolio, making sure you have enough insurance, the stuff that's easy to forget and push to the side. These are important, but you don't see a lot of subscriptions here. You see a lot of free offerings. Hey, come in and use our free tool, and then they may use that to market subscriptions to you. And the reason you don't see a lot of subscriptions here is because in the time between each event, there's not a lot to pay for. And so it's hard to justify a subscription. So what that means is it's left largely to you to do on your own. And that's one of the reasons why these kinds of events are the ones that slip through the cracks. It's easy to forget, it's boring to do, and there are certainly things that you would rather be doing. The other thing here that's important to emphasize is that unless you identify something wrong or something important, these don't really change the way that your financial life works. Now that brings us to the last set of events, which are infrequent. Now, some of these are predictable because we do them on purpose, and some of them aren't because they happen to us. Think about changing your job to get a better income, moving to a new state, having children, getting married. Think about something like your house burning down. These are things that can significantly change the trajectory of your financial life. Infrequent events can pull the growth and cost levers at the same time. So I live in California, and there's a lot of data that shows people are leaving the state for lots of reasons. But one of them is because it's expensive and the taxes are too high. So you move to Texas, you pay no income tax. You have effectively pulled the cost lever, you pay less income tax, and the growth lever because now you keep more of your income. Once again, subscriptions can't help you with these issues. Let me give you an example. I was on LinkedIn about a month ago, and there was a woman who uses a budgeting app who was talking about how it kept pinging her about her being over budget, that her spending was too high. Her frustration came from the fact that she and her family were getting ready to move, and therefore their spending had spiked. But her budgeting app, which is tuned to look for recurring events, had no ability to accommodate this sudden change in spending, and she had no way to turn it off. So it kept reminding her that they were spending too much money. Your financial life, and in fact, its impact on your regular life, are defined by big decisions. A lot of them you make when you're young. Some of them you never change. What do you do for a living? Do you get married? Do you have children? Things like that. And the trajectory of that life that you've picked changes if you make mid-course decisions or if some of these things happen to you. So subscriptions are not the panacea that we have been promised. They have been overused and overapplied. And not necessarily because they benefit us as users, but because they are easier and more attractive for the businesses that offer them. So I would encourage you to make sure that you are matching the solution you buy to the problem that you have. And keep an eye out for the things that, at least today, these financial subscription tools cannot help you address. Thanks for listening. I hope you'll come back for the next episode.